Welcome to episode 4 of the Unintentional Podcast, where we mine the rich seam of Bristol clubbing history. And with me today are Sim Beaton, aka Simmer, Duncan Crane, aka Nifty, and Jamie Anderson, aka Jamie Anderson. And we're talking about the Bristol Techno explosion, which ran probably from 94 till 98, give or take a year either way. Super interesting chat with three stalwarts and heroes of the scene. So thanks for listening.
So thanks for joining me. This is the fourth one I've done. This will probably be the fourth one that comes out, I suspect. And what I do is I edit it all together and then send it all to everyone to make sure they're all happy with what's going out. And then once everyone is happy with it going out, it then goes out, and that's sort of it. And I might branch out eventually, but right now I just want to sort of document a certain era in Bristol music history that we were all part of. And I've been banging on forever to anyone who will listen about what I have loosely decided to call the Bristol Techno explosion, where there was a point in Bristol clubbing history where 3-4 venues a week were absolutely full to the rafters of people listening to techno, and almost everyone playing was a local DJ. And it sort of ran in parallel with the Travellers thing, it ran in parallel with the drum and bass thing, it ran in parallel with lots of different bits and pieces that were going on. And you are all key protagonists in the development thereof. So I wanted to speak to you all, really. I've never done this with more than one person on a call before, so it's quite interesting. The dynamic might be interesting. And feel free to sort of dive in and butt in and just pretend we're in a pub or something, rather than an interview situation like you're applying for a job. Or more accurately, I'm applying for a job and you're the panel, in fact. How I currently feel. But in my head, I'm trying to think it through chronologically, but this is the way that I see it, or remember it loosely, is that Tokyo Sex Whale was kind of the first thing to branch out and play, I guess, a different sound to what was happening in Bristol outside of the emerging kind of jungle thing and the emerging house thing and the emerging rave thing. And that obviously has a place in the story, but obviously wasn't particularly local. And people weren't coming for the locals, they were coming for the guests, the Svens, etc., that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. And the way, and Shimmy was started in, I think the first Shimmy was in November 94, but I reckon, and I may be wrong, Jamie, that you, long before that, were already putting out different tunes and probably had a label running already. Is that about right?
Yeah, we stayed before 94, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So did you have something before Art Form?
Yeah, we did Problem Child Records.
That's right.
With Andy Westcott.
That was it.
Sim had a record right as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I had a record. That was my
first. Sim released,
wasn't it?
So
Yeah.
I the Storm or... Yeah.
Calm Before the Storm, yeah.
That's Calm Before the Storm.
That was it. That was it.
I spent the weekend with Andy last weekend, actually.
How's he doing?
He's good. He's back in the UK, and he's not obviously doing any techno music or anything like that, or anything in the studio, but he's playing his guitar as much as he can.
Yeah, he was in Portugal, wasn't
he? He was, but he's back now. Okay. We talked about that release, and we talked about the label, and we kind of talked about it on the back of the Ian Wilkie interview that he did, because obviously that resurrected loads of memories and stuff, and talking about the way we were frantically everyone trying to put records out, and obviously that release for me was was what kickstarted me. And to this day, I still make music that sounds like that record. It doesn't seem to matter. I think it's your techniques that, Jamie, that you and Andy taught me back then. Yeah. Basically, if I turn on Logic, that's basically what I go to, is that type of programming.
Okay, yeah.
It's amazing, to be fair, because that's where you get your signature sounds from, isn't it?
I probably do it quite similar still to this day as well.
I think you do, because I listen to your stuff, and it's definitely Jamie Anderson. Problem Child Records We couldn't have done without.
That's what it was, and I'd forgotten what it was called. But you're absolutely right. That was it.
And I met Jamie accidentally, so I didn't know who Jamie was at that time, and I don't know if you remember at all, Jamie, where we first met.
Nope.
Okay, so it was at Lakota. We were both dancing on the stage at the end of the night, but it's kind of
I remember that. Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah, we weren't at the front. We were just close, just at the back because there was a lot of room at the back. So yeah, that's where I first met him. Yeah,
wasn't it Dave Angel playing or something?
it was indeed. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I remember that.
there you go.
Yeah, because I remember listening, going, "Where's he get these records from? I never heard these records before." And then, like 6 months later, I find out it's one of his ones.
Yeah, from his label, unsurprisingly. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you still in contact with Dave then? Because you did quite a lot of stuff together, didn't you, for a while?
Yeah, he's still doing good.
Good.
He's not been very well, though, has he?
No, he wasn't well for a while.
You did a remix for us a few years ago now, but I haven't had any sort of contact with him for a bit.
Yeah, because he had a revival going, really, didn't he? Sort of tipped off and then sort of came back. He did some stuff for Gel Ford and stuff on Jericho, I think, if I remember rightly, a few years back.
Okay.
But
that's right. Yeah.
The original people seem to stick around, don't they? You know, this is the thing about the 90s, isn't it? I mean, if you were lucky enough to be around in the 90s, one, it was all emerging. You know, we all cut our teeth back then, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, and it's...
Well, it was for the love, not for the money and fame. But that was never...
Yeah.
Never money and fame then.
I mean, I was out the other night. I got a phone call from a friend of mine who had some visitors down from London, and one of them was Terry Francis.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, well, I used to play records with you in Bristol years ago, so do you fancy going for a pint on a Thursday afternoon? Obviously left work, got to the pub 12 o'clock, didn't get home till about midnight, absolutely kited. But it was really good. It was just like, literally haven't seen this bloke for over 20 years. And the last time I saw him was in a really hot, sweaty club and we couldn't barely speak, you know what I mean? It was like...
leaning over and shouting each other's ears, yeah.
Yeah, it was just DJing talk, but it was just... he's still going, he's, still at Fabric, still banging it out, but saying they're just about to start up again, I think.
Yeah.
Because of what went on and then the COVID and everything. But, we were having that same conversation that we're lucky enough to have been around in the early days. You know, there's got something to be said for being this age nowadays. You know,
like Leon was saying at the time, it was a really good place it's like a training ground because you could play every weekend without having to leave the city.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that trying to get around town, or I personally used to do a lot of shopping over in Bath at Stardust Records and Mike Healy, and just running around town trying to get a record that nobody else had. That was always the one. Because I
got quite competitive at one point when everyone sort of chasing the same.
That's a trend, yeah.
Yeah, there's
for you, Jamie. You were writing them.
Yeah.
No one got this one.
But that was good days. Good days indeed.
So when art form started when did you start that? Can you remember?
97.
97,
yeah.
Right. So it was Problem Child all the way through. That's what I was trying to work out in my head because I licensed something off you, didn't I? Dolphin, which then became the first Hope release under a different name and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember. But Sim and Duncan, I think, your role in this conversation, and generally, is probably, there was a point with Homegrown Nifty, and obviously Simmer Shimmy. There were those were the two mainstay techno nights of the time.
Strange Fruit was there, wasn't it?
And Electric
Strange
Orgasm.
Fruit was there.
Electric Orgasm, Species.
Yeah, I forgot about Electric Orgasm actually.
Just a little smile then, because I remembered Toxic Shock. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Toxic Shock on down at Loco. Who did that? I can't remember who did it.
I remember that.
But great name for a techno night, Toxic Shock. No women there whatsoever. Just bloke.
No.
Yeah, so.
What a night out.
Yummy.
And then there was Heresy, wasn't there, as well? And,
they were the crazy
opened at 5 in the morning and went till midday. Once.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Then when Lakota finished, they'd start.
Yeah, that's it. So you find yourself in the basement at Loco at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning, wondering what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, what time did the clubs close then? You had Secular closed at 1, and then you had Lakota closing at 2.
Yeah, five most weekends, and then we had 1-7 in the morning when we on a special occasion.
It was like really early closing.
Oh, it was early to begin with. Yeah,
Trinity was 6, wasn't it, on the big nights?
Yeah.
And Easton Community Centre was 4, I believe, because it was, in the middle of the houses.
Easton Community Centre was crazy. This is literally just
it's the traffic light
house. It was just a big house basically. It was so full.
Yeah.
And these nights would offer 2 or 3 rooms, and each room was just slightly harder and faster than the other one.
Yeah.
And
a bit smaller.
Yeah,
a bit smaller.
Like the main room with the traffic lights. So it was, even though it was the main room, it was the quietest room.
Yeah.
But you were just the whole time you were DJing, you just had to keep your eye on.
Oh, you had to keep an eye on the thing. Yes, you did.
Yeah, otherwise it cut out all the sound.
Yeah,
it's just cut out.
That was the Community Centre, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With the UPA in there most of the time, wouldn't it? Used to run the sound system, UPA.
I can't remember.
John Duncan, you must remember that one.
I'm trying to.
But if he was running the rig, then it was okay because he'd be sitting there looking at the lights all night and you could freestyle a bit. But if there was an incoming, like a visiting PA, basically it just
on and off,
all night long.
I remember the sound systems being good back then because I always remember leaving a club with my ears ringing, like it never happens ever since. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
someone talks about I can hear them. Just be like,
I think you get a bit closer to speakers back in those days, Jamie. I don't think you go as close to them.
Into the red, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And mostly vinyl, so you're getting like full signal with less compression. These modern
absolutely
compressed, isn't
absolutely.
It?
Yeah, sausages.
With mixed no EQ on them. Just slam it in.
I find this when I go. We go to Awakenings and that, and do a few bigger events. We've got these massive rigs, and when you were at Awakenings last year, weren't you? Don't.
Yeah.
It's just the setups, with Tomorrowlandy style things. You know what I mean? But the sound systems, as soon as they open the faders, there's kind of this dead area. Unless it depends on the sound system, I suppose, who's playing and who's running it. I just find it really undynamic mixes a lot of the time. It's just music by numbers almost.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do laptop sets, aren't they? So it's all...
Everyone's really obsessed by a kind of perfect seamless mix, aren't they now, I think?
Yeah.
Whereas you couldn't really get that, and especially if you just bought the tunes 4 hours previously from Duncan in Giant or something. You had a there was a lot of guesswork involved, wasn't there?
There was, yeah. Freestyle.
I'm trying to remember who
Speak
played.
yourself, yeah.
All right. Well, you were probably more thorough and more. You were always more detailed, and obviously you got a producer's ear and that kind of thing. I never had any of those things, and it was just, a few beers in and just sort of vaguely trying to work it all out. And I was probably a lot more slapdash than you were. I think.
I remember Billy Nasty played at Techno set. Billy Nasty played a night. I can't remember whose night it was. I don't think it was one of Jamie's. And he came and he played an awful set. And afterwards, he apologised and he said, "Oh, sorry, it was rubbish. I just had new tunes I wanted to try out." So he literally had like a load of white labels and stuff he'd never heard himself, and just played a random set of white labels.
Yeah.
So it was all like a bit mashed together, but
checking out promos live.
Yeah. I remember Weatherall doing that to me once. Weatherall come and played at Empty Loco. And I gave him the money and went, "Cheers for the rehearsal, mate." Wow, brilliant, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah,
nice very much.
Thanks myself.
It's a bit of a weird one because I find sometimes, I've played plenty of gigs where I literally just turn up with my tunes. I have no real plan. I don't know what the crowd's going to be like. I literally take a few of these and a few of those, and and sometimes those are the best ones. where you are just pulling the tunes out and slapping them down and just mixing, boom, 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 in, out. Sometimes it just works.
Yeah.
But then the next time you go, what was that set I played? You have no recollection of what you did.
No.
Well, I remember Joey Beltram, when he played Lakota, he had the smallest record box I've ever seen. It carried about 20 records, and he just played one record after the other. It was just a pre-made set that he would always play the same set.
That's what Dave Clark did. He turned up with like a one of those roller bags that zipped and opened up like that, and they had like the first hour there and the second hour there. Oh. Then you do that and then complain about the head shells for 2 hours at me in the office.
Yeah, brilliant.
Kids.
Because you were running nights as well, though, weren't you, Jamie?
Yeah, we did a few.
What were they called?
Destiny.
Yes, they were. Correct.
Correct.
Right. Correct.
You win.
I remember. You win. Yeah, exactly. The microwave oven is yours. And where were they then?
So we did. I think they started at the Thekla, and then Trinity. And then we did one review, one or two review, didn't we?
Yeah.
I always thought Destiny was a shit name. I came up with the name and I thought it was rubbish. So it's never going to go anywhere.
It's weird coming up with names for nights. I thought Shimmy was my peak, and after that I went back down again. And Temptation wasn't quite as good, and then I don't think Hope was quite as good as it's like one of those. I should have just the Shimmy thing was bang on, and after that I ran out of good ideas.
Yeah,
you probably got about one or two good names in your entire career, haven't you? And then once you've used them, you're sort of stuffed.
Well, that's how we came up with Homegrown, because the whole it leads on to your point that you started with, Leon.
Yeah,
the fact it was because you didn't need to pay and go see a good DJ, because there are plenty of good DJs.
Yeah.
So you got it just by listening to people from the city. So you paid less.
Yeah.
But you still got good music. So that was the trade-off, really.
And was that something that came off the back of those? It sounds a bit arrogant, I don't mean like this, but is that something that came off the back of the early successes that Sim and I had with Shimmy when that finally kicked in? Did you feel, oh, look, that's happening there, I'm sure we could do something similar?
No.
Just unconnected.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine, because I think Shimmy was the first of its kind in that sense. And in the terms of local DJs in that genre, and obviously the drum and bass thing have been doing it for quite a while, and other genres have been doing it. But with the techno thing, we'd been so reliant on Solid State bringing people in.
Because we were doing stuff. I don't know where the timeline is. It'd be interesting to find out for sure when Shimmy and Homegrown started, because we did do small things to start with. So we did do the Thekla, and we did the Blue Mountain,
right,
and a few other little places just to start off with. But no, it was. I went away traveling, and while I was away traveling, I bumped into this guy from London, and he played me some tapes of stuff that was going on in this country, and I'd been away for 6 months.
Right.
And it was, one of the tracks was actually Bookham Horizon. So it's PMF, wasn't it? Horizons, which just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then he had a load of other stuff, and I was like, no, fuck this, I can do this any other time. I'm going to go back, because the music scene is definitely going off. And I came back, and that's when I bumped into Jodie, and the first night I went out was, I think it was a night that Ian was definitely playing there, and I think Jamie might have been playing there. It was a New Year's Eve with Dana Dang at Trinity.
Oh, that was one of mine, yeah. Ian Wilkie was playing that one as well.
Yeah, so Ian played the last set, I think, if I remember rightly. And I came back and I stayed with some friends afterwards, because I sort of caught up with people after travelling, and that's when I said, I've got an idea, like, why don't we do like a night and call it Homegrown and just use like local talent? So I think, was that 96 you did that then, Jamie?
94.
So that's when Homegrown.
I'm surprised my memory still works.
Yeah, well done. Well done. Yeah, Shimmy started October 94, but in a sort of different, it was like with the band, it was like we got the first lineup together, but it wasn't quite right. We kind of got it along a couple and then changed the lineup, and Sim came in and Chloe came in, and I think Paul was already there, Stewie came in, T was already there, and I was already there, and a couple of people left, kind of thing. And then we did it at the Mandrake. Yeah. And we did it. We reached a point by about April of 95 when nobody was coming still, and thought, we'll probably might go away and do something else. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, this is how I feel about it was suddenly full. And we couldn't quite work out how or why, but that was the point. So that was about April or May 95. Was that chime with what you remember?
It was still Wednesday nights then, though, wasn't it?
And it was still Wednesday nights, yeah. And then we took the summer off and did nothing. And that kind of built this bananas hype. So the time we came back to Loco in September of 95, you know, I mean, I still get haircuts from people who, you know, who say, oh, you know, I messed my degree up because I'd go out every Wednesday to shimmy and then, you know, that kind of thing. So it was like this Wednesday thing really connected, which is an idea that we stole off Flybaby because they were doing Mondays or Tuesdays at the Tube or something. And that it was like a student thing that Shocker was doing, Sherwin was doing. When do you think?
There were a lot, like you said, Mandrake. We did the Mandrake as well. There were a lot of sort of like starter places that you could do sort of little things at. Yeah. Just to sort of find your feet and see if you had an audience, and then you know, hopefully move up to, you know, Hecla and Blue Mountain.
Because we went to the Mandrake because we started One Love in the Mandrake, I think.
Basically, if you're going to do a night in Bristol, you had to start at the police club.
Yeah. It was like the Police and Nurses Social Club, wasn't it?
It was the Police and Nurses Social Bar, wasn't it? And they're all coming in later on, smacking, taking little friends. Weren't they?
It was, wasn't it? The Mandrake was a police bar.
It was, yeah.
3 in the morning, they're all doing beatnik dances all around the bar. What you on, where you're from, and all that, isn't it?
Reach for the lasers.
Yeah. Reach for the lasers is not too high because you'll hit the ceiling because it's an art. Brilliant day.
But I don't think this existed in any other city in the country. I don't think Manchester or Liverpool, any of those places, they were already super reliant on bigger names. And I'm only talking within this genre. You know, there were nights in Manchester that were sort of trying to, you know, different crews and stuff. But I never felt it really connected the way it connected in Bristol. And I don't really know why. I think it was a combination of different feels and just the, you know, it was a kind of a reaction to big name clubbing and the fact that it was cheap to get in. And the fact that DJs were good, clearly, you know, well, Wilkie or you.
And the other thing is, we didn't have any. Well, not I stayed clear of it anyway. I tried to. There were no real politics. You know what I mean? It was no sort of right.
I don't think there were. And you all played for different. You know,
exactly. We all played at each other's nights.
You'd go off. Exactly, we all played each other's nights. Exactly.
Yeah. So
it was the same with you, Jamie. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of like one big night, wasn't it? You know, we were all
just picked which venue you wanted to go to. Almost, and
great, I'm playing
did 2 a night.
Yeah, a lot of the time.
Early one at Easton Community Centre, late one at Trinity. You know.
Yeah. Nip into the depot on the way over.
Yeah. The depot.
That's it.
That's what I'd forgotten. Yes. What a place that was.
Yeah.
A sweatbox downstairs, wasn't it?
The basement in the depot. It was just so good.
It was akin to the back room of Lakota, though, wasn't it? Because that was a sweatbox as well.
Yeah.
When you got people punching the air and there, blimey.
Yeah.
Low ceiling and just pounding sound system.
Yeah.
And luckily, the DJ booth was slightly raised, so you were right up in the heat, and it was great.
It was so hot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You couldn't get away.
Unreal. Just stood in a pool of sweat, just like dying. But when you were young, I guess we just didn't care. It's like, I just have some more beer, it'd be fine. Yeah.
It wasn't like
water, hadn't
everywhere though, wasn't it? Like Lakota drip on you, Loco drip on you, Depot, Trinity. Literally the energy going on inside those venues back then. You know, it wasn't any wonder that all that liquid was going to be coming out of people and ending up looking on you. You know,
exactly.
You know, we used to call it techno juice, didn't we? I mean,
that's right. Yes.
You know what I mean? There was nothing like, you weren't going to a techno night back then to be cool. You were going there to rip your shirt off, go mental.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, absolutely.
I think that kind of has changed a little bit now. You know, I think it.
Well, there was always the cool techno nights. You know, there was like Lost and all the stuff going up in London that I never felt I was part of or particularly was interested in, really. But Bristol kind of turned it and flipped it on its head and turned it into something that didn't involve coolness, just involved going out and having a great time and taking your shirt off. And there were also a lot of girls there, so it wasn't like just blokes. And it's very blokey now, I think. That's my feeling when I get emotional or whatever for that, occasionally. I think when we were doing it, it was just really open and people just went and had a right blast,
Mm. Yeah. And wherever you were, it was very rare that there was any trouble or anything like that.
No.
It was like...
It didn't dawn on us. No, totally.
Nobody was there for anything but,
anything else but just having fun.
And losing their mind to the music, It was...
Yeah.
So it was about music, really.
Yeah, totally was. Yeah, you're right. It was
latest stuff from the local guys, and occasionally a guest, but generally, we were all following each other, weren't we? And
yeah, totally.
Just wanted to hear the next thing.
Yeah,
which was amazing.
It was crazy.
A real scene and a style came out of that, even if we didn't call it something in particular. It's like I think I still hear that sound today.
Yeah, I think you're right.
People crave it, don't they?
Don't realise where that was developed. It was from that time.
Yeah,
it's kind of a melting pot. It wasn't. I think other cities had a very particular sound of techno, which was traditional techno, but we had one which was kind of inherent to Bristol, which had a mixture of everything from acid to trance to Detroit techno, and everything was just kind of melting pot.
Yeah.
And stirred around, which is kind of, you still hear it now. It's like
I think there was a kind of an innocence to what we were doing to a degree, and a kind of naivety that I think made it. It's exactly that. And we were just super enthusiastic. When I started Hope, the idea was to just put out loads of different things that I liked. And I swear that kind of attitude is what we all had when we were doing what we were doing. So just kind of, Shimmy had no manifesto. We just wanted people to have fun and for us to have fun and play good tunes. I think it really made any money out of it particularly. It was just a thing that we did and it kind of ran itself and,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was just that. I mean, I do. It's one of the things I struggle with nowadays. I work around a lot of younger DJs. I mean, they're all great guys. Don't get me wrong, and they got good pick and they can mix well. It's all CDJ based, and it's the button. It might even be pressed. For some of them, I mean, I don't go that way myself because I just don't. That's not how I mix. I mix. Traditionally, if you like, you know what I mean? But back then we used to talk about the records. There used to be this buzz and this hype about the records, like Duncan would, he'd be like, I've got this whites of this, and Jamie would be like, the TPs are in for that. And, and it'd be like, we got, have you got one? No, I've got this and I've got that, and they would be talking about these things that I can't wait to play on Saturday. I'm going to do this. And now everyone's a little bit more, I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong, but it's not like that. It's all a little bit more close to your chest. I've spent 48 hours on Beatport and I've bought the latest Top 100, and I'm not going to tell you which ones they are. Do you know what I mean?
What order I'm going to play them in?
Yeah, exactly. It was all like we were, I would be waiting for one of us to drop that track you've been telling me about in the record shop. You're there going, he's going to do it in a minute. It's coming. It doesn't really happen. It's we again going back. I don't want to be cliched or repeating myself, but we were lucky in that respect. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because that energy of flying around town. What have you been doing all day? I've just been in record shops. I've driven to Cardiff, I've driven to Bath, and I've gone around Bristol, and I've got these amazing...
That's it, we used to just go as far. You'd be like, where have you been all day? I've been down in like Manchester, like record shopping, or just record.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing now. I'm going to go into London now. I'm going to go and play records there.
Yeah, right.
I mean, at the end of the day, the record box was only that wide, wasn't it? And you kind of didn't delete them very often, very quickly, did you? You kept them in there because it's still good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had gigs coming out, and then you might be going to Europe to play a couple or somewhere else in the country, and you say, well, I've not played there yet, so I'll take those. I played a Homegrown, Species, Shimmy, all in the last 3 weeks. But if you were going somewhere else, that set was relevant.
Still fresh,
Yeah, it was because they had different records.
I mean, I used to find that in Germany. I was playing Germany, and I just sounded completely different to anyone else I was playing with on the lineups.
Yeah.
And they were good, and the music was good, but it was just completely different.
Completely different.
I've never seen any of it or heard any of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially if you went to...
And a lot of it was German that they couldn't get because it's all coming in on import to us.
Yeah.
And they'd be importing all the UK stuff or whatever. And but we used to go and do Freiburg a lot, didn't we? Or did it twice, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, Freiburg. I did it. Yeah, I did it a couple of times a year, and then I went out there 2 or 3 more times after that.
Did you? Okay, right. Yeah.
I was doing that. They had that residency in Luxembourg.
Yeah, that's right.
Luxury. You remember that, Jamie?
I came out with you once, didn't I?
Yeah, and you did, and we did a shimmy there, didn't we, as well, Leon? In the end, studio
in Luxembourg. Yeah, we did.
At Café de la Gare, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
old train station thing. And Stuart ended up shimmy S on the back, like
into his hair.
Yeah, that was it, wasn't it? We
right,
bleached it. Yeah, but yeah, Luxembourg was a good one because you could just nip into the other countries and do other gigs. Like, you go to Belgium afterwards and do like an after party at 8 a.m. till midday, and then go from there to like, I think it's Switzerland, and to play another after party. It was all within an hour. It was really easy.
Yeah.
Those are good days. Luxembourg was good. Good fun.
I have a question for you then, Leon.
Yeah.
So obviously you had your creams and your losts and orbit and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any way that Lakota could have carried on and been a sort of super? I mean, it was a super club really at the time, but could have carried on and maybe sort of done more with the tours or something? Or were you kind of hamstrung?
Well, in terms of building an external brand, you mean?
Yeah, and taking it on the road.
A larger brand. Well,
yeah, or
Yeah, it's clear. I mean, that was kind of what the lady. I don't know if you've listened to Marty's interview, but
I haven't yet. No,
So the label was part of that thinking, and she was saying the problem was that they were really, they weren't that switched on business wise. So in '97, they made a lot of money. They turned over an awful lot of money. But then suddenly they were faced with competition and they didn't really have any cash reserves. And then the whole thing was over before it began because they hadn't really planned it correctly in that sense. But that was the idea of the label. But obviously they said to me, "Oh, do you want to do the label?" I said, "Yes, I do." Because I already had some label experience with a couple of labels I'd done before that. And in pre-shimmy, I was doing all that. And in their heads, when they said label, they kind of meant, trying to think what that, Sirius Records or something like that. And in my head, obviously, I was thinking, Team Master featuring Digital City and Major North Annihilate. And because the stuff sold really well, they were sort of, all right, we better carry on with it, but they were a bit worried, So, and I think it was complicated for them to work out what that brand was, because if you think about the Ministry brand or the Cream brand, the brand was the night, and it was that one thing. But Lakota was kind of many other things, and really Lakota was a venue for other things going on in it, whether it was Shaft or Cooker or Temptation or Solid State or Fandango or Revolution, or so it's very hard for it to become a brand. I think when really it was actually hosting other brands too. I think it was a combination of things.
Something that can be used for marketing, though.
We weren't together enough as a simple answer.
Yeah, fair enough.
We weren't together enough, and we weren't. I think we maybe all had different wishes and desires of where we wanted to take what we were taking. And it was really interesting talking to Marty, because is what Jamie was saying. We just threw a load of stuff together. It was like, oh, let's have some American house, or let's do drum and bass, or let's do this, or let's do that. And then there was this pushback, I think, from Bristol. Once it reached a certain level of success, classic Bristol, then everyone just goes, "Oh, look at them! Look at them all, doing what they're doing and doing it well." So then you get the backlash, and then I think it was sort of flipped on its head, and not saved is too strong a word, but resurrected by drum and bass, because we got called out by Ronnie on Sound City on Radio 1 for being for not offering him a gig, basically for not having any full cycle stuff going on, and drum and bass being so enormous. So then we brought Ronnie in, and that then kind of pushed everything into another direction again, but obviously managed to make things, I'm not sure it's answer your question, but I think it could have been. I think the desire was there from mine to make it that. But I think there were things holding her back. And
it was a bubble, wasn't it? You had to kind of catch the bubble.
And it was a bubble. Yeah. It was a bubble. And 97 was peak year. And then suddenly with Rock opening and everything else, it fell really quickly. And the business itself wasn't strong enough to back up anything else and try and work out what to do next,
But in hindsight, you can look back at those times and think, if I'd have just done it like this. And
yeah. 100%. Yeah, totally.
But also there's a load of other hurdles that came along, like you had when everything went digital, that was a big changeover. So it depends what position you were at the time, whether you could survive that. I think that was around 2004, 2005, I think. Kind of wiped out all the distributors in London and everything. You remember this in the magazine?
Yeah, when that was sort of 2000, when suddenly we couldn't sell any vinyl anymore. It was just gone.
Yeah. So it depends how you'd set yourself up. At the time, you would have thinking, you do it like this, and then you could have been wiped.
I remember, at 99, so 3 years before the iPod or something, I did a deal with a label called iCrunch, who paid quite a lot of money for the digital rights for Timo Mars music for the masses. And they had to explain it to me about 8 times what rights they were buying, because I just didn't understand I couldn't work out why anyone would want to listen to music on a computer. I didn't even, and they were like, it's the future, trust me. I was like, and in the end, I just took the money. I still didn't get it. And it was only 4 years later when the iPod came out that it began to make any sense. But clearly that was the sign of exactly what was coming. And you're right, had I been cleverer and more switched on and, spent my life reading the right articles, I would have known that was actually the way things were going,
Yeah.
And now we're on full circle. Vinyl's just going off now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is to a certain degree. It's not. It will never be the dominant format. And obviously, most vinyl that's selling is reissues of classic records. With our artists, we do vinyl, and it does sell if you have the right artist. But in comparison to, what it streams or whatever, obviously it isn't really.
Yeah, it's a bit of a misleading thing when they say, vinyl sales are up 500% on 5 years ago.
Yeah, and
but if you're only selling 10 records, 500%.
Yeah, that's only 50 records and 250 records or something, isn't it? It's not, people aren't buying it in their millions or even the hundreds of thousands or even their tens of thousands. You're talking about thousands,
Yeah, I think that for small independent labels, it's kind of almost like a resurgence to how it was. If you're doing like a 500 run or 1,000 run, it's almost kind of that can sustain those small artists, small labels, independent underground sort of people. Yeah. If you're a big conglomerate, then obviously vinyl sales aren't paying the bills.
No. And when we used to go to Ingrooves, you were with the Ingrooves as well, weren't you, I think, Jamie?
Yeah.
And you just go to these places, or you go to Massive Records, and you could just see the stock they had that they weren't shifting. And every week they're bringing in more new, fresh stock. And there's just this massive, massive, massive backlog of stuff that nobody wants, And I think it is different now. I think there is a demand for vinyl again, much more than there was then. But as a market force, it definitely reached a point where it would become so saturated that, no one knew what to do with themselves, And everyone was just putting out records, weren't they?
It's still nice to collect, though, isn't it?
Oh, lovely!
Buying lots of records, Tim.
Yeah, well, not really. I was sort of doing a little bit of trading around, and it's just still nice to have. Like Duncan was saying earlier, you buy an MP3 or a WAV or whatever, and it's forgettable. It's just nice to have that.
It is totally.
I've made, we've all got, I see records behind you, Duncan. We've all got our tunes, haven't we? Then what part of my collection went through my floor a few years ago because the floor was so rotten and they were so heavy. I was pissed off. I was like, classic. That's great. The vinyl's saying something to me because I've not touched it in so long.
Complaining.
Yeah.
You still playing out, Jamie?
Not anymore.
pre-COVID times, and will you again? Yeah.
I was, and I was actually in two minds I kind of slowed it down. So I really like playing in Berlin more than I like traveling and being away every weekend. So I was quite happy just playing gigs here, and then it all just shut down. So
yeah, where were you playing?
You're Panorama Bar, aren't you?
Yeah, well, started off playing Panorama Bar and then Trésor and where else was I? All the different clubs there. It was back in Bristol, so I like it.
Yeah,
we can play.
That's the thing. Berlin's kind of carried that tradition on, I think, to a certain degree, isn't it? And it has enough new people coming into it in terms of tourists, but also people moving there, that it keeps it fresh, I think.
It's got a good local scene and lots of studio people doing stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, similar.
I do like it there a lot. Winters are a bit tricky, but the rest is all right.
Yeah, I like it and stay down here.
I was going to come over to Berlin last year, but obviously everything went wrong, which is a shame. So when I come over, Jamie, I'm going to have to look you all up then. You have to show me
definitely.
All the hot clubs.
Yeah, same here.
Down here in Little Cornwall, it's quite nice because there's not many. I mean, it's not about clubbing here. It's about parties on cliff tops by in fields still, and it.
That sounds good as well.
It's great. I mean, even the commercial events. I mean, if you think Boardmasters or Mars Ball or even those events, they're on cliff tops. Overlooking the ocean, and it's outdoors. It's under canvas. So it's either they're obviously a bit more like the Glastonbury feel set up sort of thing. But, most of the parties are just, outside tents, sound systems. It's just like it used to be. It's got that vibe. I'm just trying to think. I think I've only been in a club in Cornwall since I've been there twice.
Right.
One of them was in Newquay. We did a gig in Newquay and it was awful. It was just terrible. I just don't even want to talk about it really. But the rest of them have just been outside and just good fun, and it is just like the old days, and it is like a bit like what we were saying earlier with the Bristol. It's the same crews. We're all just going round and round. There's 4 or 5 of these events, and we're always on the same lineups in different format, sort of thing. So it's the same sort of crowd. I mean, obviously we're only appealing to a smaller crowd because it's Cornwall. That's sort of a local crowd, as it were. But it equates to what you're saying, Jamie. You'd just rather stay in Berlin and do your thing. You know what I mean? You just got to do your thing, haven't you?
Yeah.
It goes for all of us.
You have to put a lot of energy into it if you want to be there, traveling around the world doing it. Not just the doing it, but just to even get into that position, and it gets tiring,
Yeah, sure.
We were having that conversation before you joined, actually. I think Seb and I just about. Yeah, because it's a massive commitment, and if you really want to do it, and if you really want to, compete in that kind of a market, you have to really throw your all at it and be prepared to sacrifice every weekend and just lose contact with all your mates and all that kind of thing, because they're all working Monday to Friday and you're away every weekend, and you want to form a steady relationship with another human being and stuff like that. So you really have to want to do it. Like anything else, I guess being a sports person or anything else, if you want to try and reach another level, you have to commit your every waking minute to it, which is probably fine when you're 24. But
I was going to say, we must all remember some of those gigs that we booked ourselves out. Like, I mean, I'll never forget flying to Johannesburg in South Africa. Literally no contract, never met these people before. Got on a plane, 17-hour flight, landed in Johannesburg. They weren't there to meet me.
What happened?
They say, welcome to our country. And it's like, but you take the risks, don't you? When we were taking, all of us were taking these risks back then. It was just like, that sounds like a good idea. Off I go.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it'd be right. Get the contract sorted, flights. There's there'd be a lot more to still be doing it now. There's just a lot more involved in there.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I was thinking the business model caught up with it all, didn't it? So it was a case of it was all kind of like just goodwill and just for the love of the music, and then because it became such a big thing, everyone wanted a slice of the action, and people started ripping people off, and
exactly.
It became less fun. Almost.
That's how he ended up going to Freiburg, isn't it, Len? Is Frank arrived at the at Lakota.
I couldn't remember, just trying to work out how the hell why we were there in the first place.
Yeah, it's Frank, wasn't he? He arrived in his bomber jacket and his lace-up Dr. Martens, and then he's like, "You must come to Germany," and it's like, right, okay.
Why was he at Lakota? Was he just passing through or something?
He came to England to research music.
This is all pre-internet. I love it. Pre-internet stuff.
You know what I mean? Literally, and he got. I
think we would have done.
Exactly. I think he went in. He had a week in London, and then found himself at Temptation on a Friday night, and it was like, this is the best thing I've ever been to.
Wow.
And it was 2 months later, we were in Freiburg playing Techno.
Yeah.
All on, without a contract, all for like 2 hours.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
No money whatsoever.
I can't remember. We must have got paid somewhere. I think
they bought flights and a little bit of money and some bratwurst, and that was about it.
There was bratwurst, and just this in the DJ booth, which is kind of in a cage, and I just had a big fridge in it. That was it, and the fridge was just like beer, like 5, 6 rows of that was it.
Yeah,
and then you're in this sort of caged environment with all these, in this sort of odd concrete bunker in the middle of Freiburg somewhere.
Exactly that. But you've taken all that on.
And you did it for shit. That was it.
The next weekend, I'm going to Germany. Oh, who's doing that? I don't really know.
No idea. Met them somewhere once. Yeah, and it was great. And they wanted me to come back. So
we made it home alive, and we went again.
I should never forget playing Born Slippy there.
Yeah.
Which is one of those records, you see, that the Germans would never have heard, probably.
No.
We were kind of all a bit over it, and I can't remember, I had it. And you forget how the world worked then, because not everybody knew everything. And you played Born Slippy, in Freiburg in 95 or 96 or whatever. And then it's like, fuck that.
I remember playing that record. I had it on a white label, and luckily enough. And so it was early. Not many people had it, but it was kind of out there. And it was Cockney's birthday party out under the Severn Bridge at Orst Services. Were you there, Duncan?
I think I was. Yeah, I remember Cockney's birthday. Well, a couple of Cockney's birthdays.
It was bonkers, and I remember I waited all night long to play, literally, and I was like, I'm not going to get a play. I'm not going to get a play. And then it was like, I'm actually going to get the sunrise set. That's how it worked out. So, and everyone was flagging away, and a bit had it, and it was a crusty party. It was a proper party. And I dropped Born Slippy, and everybody got out and danced, put their hands in the air. The sun came up. Do you know what I mean? So that and I shouldn't have been able to get away with that because it had been acid techno all night.
Yeah.
I got on the decks and changed it and played Born Slippy, the extended mix, whatever, and it was just one of those moments.
There's only so much acid techno a man can take, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I loved it, but after like 13 hours, like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, more to the point is that record was one of those records from back then that just, But it's just one of those records that, you could play it anywhere, couldn't you? And it would just, if the moment was right, everyone's going to dance.
Because I think I probably heard Wilkie play it somewhere, first of all, in a more sort of commercial setting. I don't recall now. But, it is one of those records that's definitely stood up, to that,
I still do it now. It still comes out nowadays.
Yeah. No, so it should. And actually, the acid techno thing reminded me, because then there was a point when the Bristol Techno Explosion got replaced by the Liberator crew, who then all split up, and at one point, all 4 of them were playing 4 different techno nights in Bristol. There'd be like David Drummond in one, Chris in the other, and then there's an R and Liberator, and then there was a couple of others as well, wasn't there?
Julian. Julian, and then Guy and DDR as well, didn't you?
No, DDR.
That's right.
And they're all still doing it. They're all still out.
Yeah.
They're still going strong, aren't they? And that free party Scot scene is still going on,
Yeah.
I mean, probably at the moment, it's pretty much the only thing that's going on.
Yeah.
Fake raves.
Yeah, they're actually doing it, aren't they? Because that protest at the weekend, I know a few people that went up. Seen some of the images from there and some of the videos from there. It's just like Reclaim the Streets all over again, isn't it?
That's what I thought it looked like. Exactly the same.
Yeah, it did look like that. Yeah.
But fair play to him to have the movement to get the people going and to be doing that again, or still doing that.
Yeah.
Like it was back then in the 90s. I mean, that's
David Drummond comes up on my Instagram a lot with a sponsored post advertising a techno production masterclass he's doing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He does a show on Sunday nights on his Facebook every Sunday night, which has been the lockdown sessions, he's called it.
Yeah.
It's just him and his wife in the studio, and I think he had Chris live there a few weeks back, and they're just banging it out for 2.5 or 3 hours, literally from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on a Sunday evening. Like the lights are off, they've got lasers in the studio, the decks are on, and Justine's doing loads of visuals on screen, and it is banging. Do you know what I mean? It is really, really good, high energy, you know.
Yeah.
Just like it always was.
Yeah. No, they've not changed.
If you listen to any of the stuff we used to listen to back then, it's like 140, 150 BPM. Yeah. And it's pretty scary how fast it is.
Yeah, it is crazy fast.
It's back in fashion now.
Got 140.
It is here anyway.
It is coming back, that speed, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. It just gives me heart palpitations when I listen to old sets of mine. I just get palpitations. I just get really tight chested. Just sort of.
That was your chill out set as well.
I know. What the hell?
Dave Angel coming along with his little screwdriver, turning it to plus 16.
Yeah, plus 16.
That's not fast enough.
Yeah. I was just thinking, Leon's sets you were always fast as well, weren't you? It was always fast. You know, you used to come off the decks at Shimmy and it'd be like 160 BPM. You know.
What I was thinking.
The records you were playing, they were being produced fast.
Yeah, I mean, it was just all that kind of fast. I just loved the energy and the aggression of it, and also loved the fact that it wound people up. And I also like the fact that, for me, a lot of it was about a backlash to. I had no problem with house music or anything slower, but I had a problem with people not being allowed into clubs because they weren't wearing the right clothes and that kind of thing. And for me, everything we were doing was a backlash to that, so I just wasn't interested. And, you know, if you wanted to wear shiny shoes, or a pretty dress, you should. And if you didn't, you shouldn't. And then just come have some fun kind of thing. And that music sort of encapsulated that vibe for me. And that was the logic of it, really. And there's one Chris Liberator thing that I played, I think the last 8 months of Lakota, every time I did the last set at the last record, which I'd still play now. We just had that little care for your soul, it will live and grow, and in time you'll achieve happiness and well-being sample. Does that ring a bell? Train Spotters? I'm sure Duncan knows what it's called. Soul Mantra it's called. Chris Liberator, Soul Mantra.
Just about to say that.
Yeah. Just remembered it there, which I still play. But the joy of Tractor is I can now play at 128 rather than 145. So,
where's the fun in that, though?
Yeah,
well, it still chugs along and it still has everything in it, but without the heart palpitations.
Yeah. I don't know. I quite like to find myself at one of their raves nowadays. You know, whether I'd be holding a bottle of Jägermeister, in the middle of the dance floor and tipping it all down myself. I mean, I don't know, but I'd like to I don't know, that energy that. Those free party days, that vibe on those dance floors at that pace.
Yeah.
I wish I could keep. I think it's just wishful thinking. I wish I could keep up with it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I do find myself sometimes at too many parties where it's just a little bit plod.
Yeah, and the plod's the bad thing. And Jamie always had that sort of funky, soulful vibe, which came from a different. Yeah, it came from a different vibe than we were at the time.
Yeah, because I was trained in jazz keyboards, so I kind of came from this.
Really? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. That explains.
I I knew that, yes.
See, you actually knew something about music, whereas we were just shed builders, basically.
Yeah, so I was trained in jazz, and then I joined a jazz punk band. And I joined the punk band. It's like a jazz punk band.
Right. Jazz punk.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing music together that I think it was a Wednesday, you had a jazz piano lesson every Wednesday, am I right, Jamie?
Yeah.
There you go. Jamie's not in session today because he's gone to his jazz class.
Church of Jazz hands.
Yeah. But it's obviously, done you well, mate. Fair play.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That's where you're getting all your diminished fifths and sevenths from, Jamie. Yeah,
he knows.
Yeah, that's where...
those lessons still come into play now. There'll be someone comes in the studio and they'll bring something. It's like, I do know this because I learned this once. Never had to use it ever since. It's like, but then now it's finally 40 years later I can do it.
There it is.
Right.
But that's what it is so important, and what we're trying to sort of make the kids understand you can't, is that stuff you're picking up now you will suddenly need in about 30 years' time. And it seems,
even if you only need it once.
Yeah. But you all need it, and suddenly it'll be there in the back of your head again. I can't remember. Yeah, all right, let's do it.
But grab it before you forget it again.
Yeah. Oh, it's gone.
What are we talking about? Oh, brilliant.
Because I was going to give Luge a call and bring him in, but I didn't. I thought it was nice to bring Jamie in, and actually, it was Sim's idea, Jamie, that I give you a call. So I thought we'd just add a slightly different dimension to the conversation and give it more of a true historical angle, I think. And and you've obviously gone on, and art form's still going, isn't it?
Well, I haven't released anything on it for years. It's still going. It's still there.
Still there, right? Yeah.
You do stuff with on Fossil, though, don't you?
Yeah. So one of the artists I was working with on Artform then set up Fossil Archive, and he's now DJing at Berghain and Fabric and everywhere.
Okay.
So kind of let it kind of morph into that, really. But it's always there for when I want to pick it up.
Yeah.
Like I say, it takes all these things take a lot of energy and time. So
yeah, they do.
I kind of get bored of things quite after a few years. If it gets to a certain point, I've done it, it's done now. And then I
can relate to that, definitely.
Yeah. I like building things, and I get into a point and then go.
Yeah. 100%. That is really exciting. The problem is the point at which you let go is the point that it might actually make you some money.
Oh, exactly, yeah, completely.
And you go, oh, okay, right, I'm going to go and build something again. And then I still haven't got, it's one of those, isn't it? But, in theory, we could have made Shimmy, the next whatever, but didn't, and I kind of moved on to something else, and, Simon carried on and did his thing, and he moved on to something else. And you do think we'd stuck to the thing 30 years ago and actually just, worked out our differences and just, cracked on with it. What would it look like now, kind of thing,
Yeah.
But the landscape's always changing, isn't it? That was the thing.
Well, it is always changing, and you have to move with that 100%, especially the music business, because it's just forever evolving, and it's so driven by technology that you have to be on top of that.
The way you're doing it, Jamie, you're still doing what you love to do. You're still making music for a living, and be it in the same form or a different label you're still doing it, aren't you? You've evolved, which is why you probably haven't done anything on Artform for ages. You've just gone into the next area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think I still build things, sheds and things, but I still DJ now and again. So it has evolved, but I'm still doing it the same way I used to do it.
Yeah.
Still mix on the fours. It's just same thing, different time.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, hopefully I can come over to Cornwall and come down and see you soon.
Yeah, do it, mate. Do it. Oh, you're all welcome anytime.
Thank you, man. Yeah,
there's room here, and please do. If you're over and you feel you want to come down, do. Plenty to see.
Love to.
Yes, definitely.
Down here.
Lovely part of the world.
It is a lovely part of the world.
Maybe not at the minute because the COVID's on the rage, but let that pass a little bit and you'll be all right. Literally. But where I live is really, really pretty, really beautiful. And there's always something going on weekends. Not necessarily raves, but, you know, there's always a pub somewhere with a bit of singing going on or something.
Yeah.
A little shanty. which seems to have made some sort of comeback in the charts.
Yeah, very popular now, I believe. Yeah.
Shanties.
Yeah. Some techno warrior shanties or something. We'll make a fortune.
That could be the new next thing.
You never know. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, thank you very much, guys. It's been lovely to see you. Yeah. Next time I'm in Cornwall, next time I'm in Berlin.
Yeah. Yeah, if any of you are here, then just let me know.
Yeah.
It's been lovely to see your faces.
Lovely to see you all again, definitely.
Nice one, guys.
See you later, gang.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.